Now, if you watch this channel regularly, you may have seen the rant I had 10 days ago or so when I was fuming about the way the April the 20th protest, or as we call it here, manifestation, was being portrayed in some quarters of the British press. And it was being framed as an anti-tourism protest. And it never was. This morning, it's April the 20th, we went to the manifestation in Arrecife and we filmed it for you. And in a minute, I'm going to roll the video, and we deliberately didn't talk over it. We wanted you to hear what was being chanted, to be able to read the placards and follow what was going on and get a feel for the atmosphere of it. But stay tuned to the end of the video, because at the end, Julie and I talk about it and summarize it. But before I roll that video, what I want to do is to make it crystal clear to you what this protest is seeking to achieve. And as you'll see, nowhere does anyone talk about stopping tourism in the Canaries. And as you'll see from the video that we run, nobody's holding placards saying tourists go home or anything like that at all. You're going to see me glance down in this first bit, and the reason is I'm actually reading from the manifesto of the manifestation. I want to make sure that you understand exactly what the protesters are looking to achieve. So the reasons behind the protest, first of all, the first one is the environmental strain having so many tourists is putting on the island. The second one is the housing crisis that we have here, and if you're a young person looking to buy your first property or to even go and rent your first property and move out of home, it's very, very difficult to do so. It really is a housing crisis. There aren't enough houses available, and yet there are many empty properties on the island, and there are many, many properties which are being holiday let at the moment. And it makes it very difficult for anyone locally on a local salary to go out and commercially rent them. The third reason behind the protest is the strain on the infrastructure we have here. The buses are at bursting point, the water system isn't working, isn't coping very well. Remember, we have no natural water on the island, it all comes from desalination. And life is just more complicated by the fact that we have on any given day 205,000 people using that infrastructure, when actually the island population is around 158,000 people. So it's a big strain on the infrastructure of the island. The fourth reason they give in their manifesto is diminished quality of life. They believe that mass tourism is diminishing the quality of life for the residents here. So what are they looking for? What are their goals? There are three. They want a sustainable tourism model. Protesters want a shift away from mass tourism towards a more sustainable model that prioritises the needs of residents and the protection of the environment. Now, nobody is talking about doing this in a year and cutting the number of tourists by half. They're talking about a gradual reduction over the next few years, perhaps taking 10, maybe 15% of the number of tourists we've got currently. And that would take us back to 2016, 2017 levels. And for sure, I know the island felt a bit different in terms of the traffic flow, the queues for the main attractions and stuff like that back in 2016 and 2017. So they're calling for measures to control the number of tourists on the island at any given time, to be a part of that sustainable tourism model. And they're also talking about prioritising residents. They want policies in place to ensure that the benefits of tourism reach residents of the Canary Islands and improve their lives, not just benefit tourism companies. And the issue we have at the moment is that on paper, the Canary Islands GDP is extremely high because we have a relatively small population and we have a very big income that comes from tourism. But there are two issues around that. One, not enough of it actually comes onto the islands, so it's paid to tour operators, individuals who are living in other countries, and so on, and in some cases to companies based in tax havens. So they want more of that money to be actually coming to the islands, and secondly, they want better distribution of it. And I mean that's an obvious thing, but what I see here is that a number of people who get extremely wealthy, a small number of people who get extremely wealthy through tourism, but the vast majority of the people who live on the islands are struggling on quite low wages, particularly compared to their counterparts in Northern Europe. So that's enough of me talking. As I say, you're going to get 4 minutes now without commentary of the strike, I keep calling it that, it's not a strike, of the protest, so that you'll get a feel for what was going on, what was being said, what the chants were saying, and so on. And then at the end of it, and stay tuned until the end, and you'll hear Julie and I just sort of talking about it, and the fact that we were quite moved by what we saw and heard. Thanks for watching. We're walking away from the manifestation, or as you would call it in English, the protest, and I'll run the video we shot of that for you before this, so you will have seen it with your own eyes. I think the key thing is that it's not an anti-tourism.
There was no
protest.
emphasis on tourists go home at all, was there? There was nothing.
I didn't even see the word tourist on any of the placards. No. It is about having a cohesive tourism plan. It is about providing
water for the farmers.
And water for those of us who live here.
Housing.
Housing for people who work in the hotels and the car hire companies and all of those things. Interesting juxtaposition we have here, because right at the end of this we have a massive cruise ship, and Arrecife today has been full of people from that cruise ship. And also interesting that we're now just walking past the statue erected of Cesar Manrique looking out to sea, and he himself led protests against over-tourism in the early 1990s. This obviously is him as a young man. So it wasn't an anti-tourist strike, a protest, it wasn't anything of the sort, but it is about the things I talked about just now. It's also about trying to redistribute some of the wealth we have, because quite a few of the placards were saying things like 30% of the population of the Canaries are in danger of poverty. Well, that's not right on islands where we earn so much money from tourism. So it's about making sure that income stays in the Canaries rather than going to remote companies in other parts of the world or tax havens, and then also about redistributing that so that everyone to the
top down,
from the CEO to the lowliest kitchen porter actually earns a decent living wage and can afford to buy a house or rent a house to live in.
Yeah, I mean, everyone recognises we have to have tourism here, and it is part of our way of life. But it just needs to be less. Less is more was one of the signs, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it's a better experience for everybody if there's less.
That resonated with me because, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that, many of the people watching this, you've been coming to Lanzarote for 25, 30 years. You'll have seen the changes. You'll have seen how difficult it is to get into some places now, how the roads are crowded and stuff like that. Well, if we can have 10% fewer tourists than we currently have, it will go back to the days where those things become much easier and improve everybody's experience, tourist and resident alike. Right, well, that's it from Arrecife this morning. Hope you found that interesting, and we certainly found it very moving. Bye for now.
Bye.